The words hit her like a blade to the chest. I, Dominic Blackwood, Alpha King of the Blackwood Realm, reject you, Elara Vance, as my mate and future queen. Elara stood frozen at the end of the aisle, her white gown suddenly feeling like a burial shroud. The grand hall of Blackwood Castle, filled with thousands of wolves who had traveled from every corner of the realm to witness her become queen, went dead silent. Then the whispers started. She could not breathe. The mate bond, that golden thread that had connected her soul to his for 3 months, began to tear. It felt like someone had reached inside her chest and started pulling her heart out through her ribs, slowly, deliberately. This is not happening. This cannot be happening. But it was. 3 hours earlier, Elara had stood in the bridal chamber while her mother fussed with her hair. Her hands had been shaking, not from fear, but from anticipation. Tonight, she would become the queen of the Blackwood realm. Tonight, the common girl from the border pack would stand beside the most powerful alpha in the werewolf world as his equal. His mate. Stop fidgeting, her mother had said, smiling through tears. You look beautiful, sweetheart. The moon goddess chose well. Elara had looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her seemed like a stranger, elegant, polished, draped in silk and silver. 3 months ago, she had been nobody. A girl who worked in her father's small trading post, who had never even seen the capital city, let alone the inside of a castle. Then the Alpha King had visited their territory on a routine border inspection, and the moment their eyes met, the bond had snapped into place like a lock finding its key. Fated mates. The rarest, most sacred gift the moon goddess could give. Dominic had been complicated. Intense. He was not a man who smiled easily or spoke softly. But in their quiet moments, walks through the castle gardens, late nights talking by the fire, Elara had glimpsed something beneath the hard exterior. A loneliness that matched her own. A hunger for connection he did not know how to express. He had been distant lately. Distracted. But she had told herself it was the pressure of ruling, the weight of the crown. After tonight, things would be different. After tonight, they would face everything together. She had been so sure. So foolish. Now, standing in that grand hall with 1,000 eyes on her, Elara watched Dominic turn away from her like she was nothing. Like 3 months of shared moments, shared breaths, shared souls meant absolutely nothing. He extended his hand toward the side entrance. And Seraphina Cole walked out. She was stunning. Tall, willowy, with cascading auburn hair and a red gown that clung to her curves like a second skin. She moved with the confidence of a woman who knew exactly how beautiful she was, exactly how much power she held. Her eyes met Elara's as she passed, and she smiled. It was a small smile, sweet on the surface. But Elara saw the venom underneath. The triumph. She knew. She knew this was going to happen. I have chosen Seraphina Cole as my queen, Dominic announced, his voice carrying through the hall. She is the mate I want. The mate I choose. Seraphina took his hand. The crowd erupted, some in gasps of shock, others in murmurs of approval. The Cole family was wealthy, powerful, politically connected. A union with them made sense in ways that a union with a common border wolf never could. Elara understood that. In some cold, logical part of her mind, she understood. But understanding did not stop the pain. The bond was screaming now, tearing at the edges, trying desperately to hold on to something that was being ripped away. She felt it like physical wounds, her chest, her stomach, her throat. Everything hurt. Everything was breaking. She tried to speak. Tried to ask why. But her voice would not come. Dominic still would not look at her. Miss Vance. The voice was cold, formal. She turned to find Marcus, the beta, standing beside her. He had always been polite to her over the past 3 months, distant, but polite. Now his face was a mask of professional detachment. You have until dawn to leave the kingdom, he said quietly. You are no longer welcome in any pack territory within the Blackwood realm. Your family has already been escorted from the premises. My family, her voice cracked. Where are they? What did you do to them? They have been returned to the border. Unharmed. He paused. I suggest you join them quickly. The Alpha King's patience is limited. The Alpha King. Not Dominic. Not the man who had held her hand in the garden and told her she was the first person who ever made him feel like he could be more than just a crown. Just the Alpha King. As if those 3 months had never happened. As if she had never existed. Elara looked across the hall one last time. Dominic stood with Seraphina now, accepting congratulations from noble wolves who had come to see her become queen. He laughed at something someone said. Laughed. She turned and walked out of the grand hall. She did not run. Not yet. She kept her spine straight and her chin up as she passed through the corridors of the castle, past the servants who averted their eyes, past the guards who pretended she was invisible. She held herself together with nothing but willpower and pride. But the moment she stepped outside into the cold night air, she broke. She ran. Through the castle gates, past the city walls, into the forests that bordered the capital. Her white gown tore on branches and stones. Her feet bled through her thin slippers. She did not care. The bond was dying inside her. Every step she took away from him made it worse, a constant, screaming agony that made her want to claw her own chest open just to make it stop. But she kept running. She passed the border of Blackwood territory. She passed the edge of the Allied territories. She kept running until the trees grew twisted and dark, until the moonlight could barely penetrate the canopy above, until the very air felt wrong, heavy and thick, like breathing through cloth. The forbidden territories. Every wolf knew the stories. These were the cursed lands where rogues went to die. Where monsters and dark creatures lurked in shadows that never lifted. No wolf who entered had ever returned. Elara did not care. She had nothing left. No mate. No pack. No home. Her family would be shunned for her disgrace, the border pack that produced a rejected queen. They would lose their trading contracts, their alliances, everything her father had spent his life building. Because of her. Because she had been foolish enough to believe that the moon goddess's blessing meant something. That fate could not be overwritten by politics and power and beautiful women in red gowns. She collapsed at the base of a massive dead tree, her body finally giving out. The white gown was ruined, torn, bloody, covered in dirt. Her hair had come loose from its elegant styling and hung in tangles around her face. She looked like exactly what she was. Broken. Discarded. Nothing. The shadows moved. Elara was too exhausted to be afraid. She lay there in the dirt and watched as something emerged from the darkness between the trees. It was not a wolf. It was not anything she had ever seen before, tall, impossibly thin, with skin like bark and eyes that glowed like embers. An ancient creature. Something from the old stories, the ones mothers told children to keep them away from these lands. It should have terrified her. But Elara had nothing left to lose. Fear required hope, and hope had died in that grand hall alongside everything else. The creature studied her with those burning eyes. When it spoke, its voice crackled like a fire settling into coals. The moon goddess sent you to me, child. Elara laughed, a broken, hollow sound. The moon goddess abandoned me. No. The creature moved closer, its movement strange and fluid, like shadows given form. She brought you here. To me. Because you are not meant to die in this forest, Elara Vance. It knew her name. She should have been alarmed by that. But she was so tired. So empty. Then what am I meant to do? She whispered. The creature extended a clawed hand. Its ember eyes seemed to see straight through her, past the broken girl and the ruined gown, past the pain and the humiliation, to something deeper. Something that even Elara did not know existed. You are meant to rise. Elara stared at that offered hand. She thought about Dominic's face, cold and hard as he rejected her. She thought about Seraphina's venomous smile. She thought about her family, escorted away in disgrace. She thought about every wolf in that grand hall who would spend the rest of their lives remembering her as the girl who was not good enough for the king. She had nothing left. Nothing except this moment, this choice, this creature offering her something she could not name. Elara reached up and took its hand. The claws closed around her fingers, cold and strange. And somewhere deep inside her chest, in the place where the mate bond had torn itself apart, something new began to stir. Something dark. Something powerful. Something that would make them all regret this night. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. The dream was always the same. Silver eyes. Dark hair tangled with moonlight. A woman in a white gown running through a forest, her bare feet bleeding, her face streaked with tears. He chased her, but no matter how fast he ran, she stayed just out of reach. And when she finally turned to look at him, her mouth formed a word, a name, that he could never quite hear. Then she vanished into shadows, and he woke up screaming. Dominic Blackwood, Alpha King of the most powerful realm in the werewolf world, sat up in his bed, drenched in sweat. His chest heaved. His hands shook. And somewhere deep inside him, his wolf howled with a grief he did not understand. 3 years. 3 years of these dreams. 3 years of waking with a name on his lips that dissolved like smoke the moment he opened his eyes. 3 years of feeling like something essential had been carved out of him, leaving nothing but a hollow ache. Beside him, Seraphina stirred. Another nightmare? Her voice was soft, concerned. But when she reached for him, his wolf snarled so violently that Dominic flinched away from her touch. Wrong. 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 I'm fine, he said, already throwing off the covers. Go back to sleep. He did not wait for her response. He grabbed a robe and left the chamber, walking through the dark corridors of Blackwood Castle until he reached the balcony that overlooked his kingdom. The capital city sprawled beneath him, peaceful under the light of a half-moon. His kingdom was thriving. The treasury was full. The armies were strong. His political alliances, secured through his marriage to Seraphina, had made Blackwood the most dominant force in the werewolf world. He had everything a king could want. So why did he feel like he had lost everything that mattered? In her private chamber, Seraphina Cole watched her husband leave through narrowed eyes. He had not touched her in months. Had barely looked at her in weeks. Every time she tried to reach for him, that damned wolf of his recoiled like she was poison. Something is wrong with the spell. She rose from the bed and moved to her vanity, studying her reflection. Still beautiful. Still perfect. The face that had launched 1,000 political alliances, that had secured her place as queen. But none of it mattered if she was losing him. She dressed quickly and slipped out through a hidden passage in the wall, one that even Dominic did not know about. The tunnel led deep beneath the castle, to a chamber carved from black stone where a single candle burned with an unnatural green flame. The witch was waiting for her. Moira was ancient, her face a map of wrinkles, her eyes milky white with blindness that somehow saw everything. She had served Seraphina's family for generations, trading dark magic for protection and gold. The spell is failing, Seraphina said without preamble. He dreams of her every night. His wolf rejects me. Fix it. Moira's laugh was dry as dead leaves. I warned you, child. Dark magic cannot destroy a true mate bond. It can only suppress it. Then suppress it harder. You do not understand. The witch's blind eyes seemed to find her anyway. A fated bond is sacred. The moon goddess herself creates it. Every spell I cast against it is like building a dam against a river. The water will always find a way through. I don't care about rivers or dams. Seraphina's voice turned cold. I care about keeping my crown. Strengthen the spell. Whatever it costs. Moira was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed. Very well. But know this, the more you fight the bond, the faster it will break. And when it does, the king will remember everything. She smiled, showing teeth like broken tombstones. Everything. Seraphina's stomach clenched with something that might have been fear. But she pushed it down. She had not come this far to lose everything now. Marcus, beta of the Blackwood pack, had served Dominic for 15 years. He had seen his king at his best and his worst. He had stood beside him through wars, through triumphs, through the complicated years of building an empire. But he had never seen Dominic like this. The king sat on his throne, receiving reports from his generals, signing documents, making decisions. Outwardly, he was the same commanding presence he had always been. But Marcus saw what others missed, the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way his attention drifted at odd moments, like he was listening for something no one else could hear. Something was very wrong with his king. And it had been wrong for 3 years. Marcus had his own suspicions. Suspicions that had grown stronger with every passing month, suspicions he had never voiced because voicing them would be treason. But now he had evidence. He waited until the throne room cleared, then approached with a leather folder tucked under his arm. My king. I need to speak with you. Privately. Dominic's eyes, tired, haunted, focused on him. What is it? The reports from the borders. The ones about missing wolves and destroyed rogue camps. Marcus opened the folder. I've been investigating personally. The attacks are not random. They're organized. Strategic. Someone is building an army in the Forbidden Territories. The Forbidden Territories are wasteland. Nothing survives there. Something does now. Marcus pulled out a piece of parchment, a sketch drawn by a surviving witness. They call her the Shadow Queen. He handed the sketch to Dominic. And watched his king's entire world shatter. The woman in the drawing had silver eyes and dark hair. She wore armor of black leather and a crown of twisted thorns. Her face was harder than he remembered, sharper, marked by years of survival and struggle. But he knew that face. He knew it. Mate. His wolf exploded inside his mind, clawing and howling with a fury Dominic had never experienced. Images flooded through him, a white gown, a grand hall, a woman standing at the end of an aisle with hope shining in her silver eyes. I reject you, Elara Vance, as my mate and future queen. He remembered. Moon goddess help him, he remembered everything. The sketch fell from his hands. His whole body was shaking. The mate bond, suppressed, smothered, but never destroyed, roared back to life like a fire finding oxygen after years of suffocation. She was alive. Elara was alive. And he had thrown her away like garbage. My king? Marcus's voice seemed to come from very far away. Dominic? But Dominic was already moving, storming out of the throne room with a single destination in mind. He tore Seraphina's chambers apart. He ripped through her wardrobes, her vanity, her private sitting room. Servants scattered in terror. Guards stood frozen, too shocked to intervene as their king destroyed everything in his path. He found it hidden behind a false panel in the wall. A box carved from black wood, covered in symbols that made his skin crawl. Inside, spell components, dark artifacts, bundles of herbs that smelled like death. And a vial of his own blood. He was still holding it when Seraphina burst into the room. Dominic, what are you? She saw the box. The color drained from her face. I can explain. Explain? His voice was barely human. His wolf was so close to the surface that his eyes had turned gold, his claws extending from his fingertips. Explain how you used dark magic to steal my mate from me. Explain how you made me reject the woman the moon goddess chose for me. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like, Seraphina. He stepped toward her, and she stumbled backward. Tell me why I've spent 3 years dreaming of silver eyes. Tell me why my wolf howls every night like something died. Tell me why every time you touch me, my skin crawls. She was crying now. Actual tears streaming down her perfect face. I did it for us, she whispered. Elara was weak. A common wolf from a nothing pack. She would have destroyed this kingdom. The other packs would never have respected a queen like her. I saved you, Dominic. I saved the realm. You saved nothing. His voice cracked with 3 years of suppressed grief. You stole everything. My mate. My bond. My choice. And you let me believe, he could not finish. Could not put into words the horror of what she had done. He had rejected his fated mate. He had watched her walk away, broken and humiliated, and felt nothing because the magic made him feel nothing. And she had run into the forbidden territories. Because of him. Seraphina did not die that night. Death would have been too merciful. Dominic stripped her of her title, her lands, her pack connections. He ordered her confined to the dungeons to await trial for treason against the crown and crimes against a fated bond, the highest offense in werewolf law. As the guards dragged her away screaming, he felt nothing but cold, focused rage. Then he summoned his war council. The generals assembled within the hour. They stood around the great table in the war room, confused and wary, sensing that something fundamental had shifted. Dominic stood at the head of the table, the sketch of the Shadow Queen spread before him. His wolf was howling inside him. His heart was racing. And for the first time in 3 years, he could feel the mate bond, damaged, faint, but alive. She was out there. His mate was out there. Find her, he commanded. His voice left no room for argument, no space for questions. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how many kingdoms we have to tear apart. He looked at each of his generals in turn, letting them see the Alpha King they should have had all along, not the hollow puppet Seraphina's magic had created, but the real man beneath. Find my mate and bring her home. Deep in the forbidden territories, Elara felt the bond stir. She sat on a throne of black stone in a fortress carved from the heart of a mountain. Around her stood creatures of shadow and fire, the outcasts, the rogues, the monsters that had become her army. Her family. Her people. 3 years had transformed her. The broken girl who had stumbled into these lands had died that first night. In her place, the Shadow Queen had risen, forged in darkness, tempered by survival, crowned by those who had no one else to follow. She closed her eyes and felt the bond pulse. Weak. Damaged. But undeniably there. He remembered. After 3 years, the mighty Alpha King finally remembered what he had thrown away. Elara opened her eyes. They were silver still, but harder now. Colder. So, she murmured, the king finally remembers. Her second in command, Kira, stepped forward. My queen? Is something wrong? Elara smiled. It was not a warm smile. Nothing is wrong. She rose from her throne, and around her, her army rose as well. Thousands of wolves, creatures, outcasts, all loyal to her, all ready to follow her into whatever came next. The Alpha King is finally coming to find what he lost. She descended the steps of her throne, her black cloak trailing behind her like shadows given form. Let him come. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. My king, this is madness. General Thorne stood at the edge of the war table, his weathered face carved with worry lines that had deepened considerably in the past 48 hours. Around him, the other generals murmured their agreement. Dominic did not look up from the map spread before him. The forbidden territories were marked in black, vast, unmapped, filled with nothing but warnings scrawled in ancient script. Here be monsters. No wolf returns. Your concerns are noted, he said. With respect, I don't think they are. Thorne stepped forward. You're talking about leading our army into cursed lands. Lands that have swallowed entire packs whole. We don't know what's in there. We don't know the terrain, the threats, I know she's in there. Dominic finally looked up. His eyes were gold-rimmed, his wolf pressing so close to the surface that his generals instinctively took a step back. My mate is in there. That's all I need to know. The bond could be leading you into a trap. Then it's a trap I'll walk into willingly. He straightened, his voice hardening into the tone that had commanded armies, conquered territories, built an empire. I'm not asking for volunteers. I'm not asking for approval. I'm telling you what's going to happen. I will find Elara, or I will die trying. Anyone who wants to follow me is welcome. Anyone who doesn't can stay behind. The room was silent. Then Marcus stepped forward. I'll follow you. One by one, the other generals nodded. Even Thorn, despite his protests, squared his shoulders in reluctant acceptance. Dominic looked at his men, loyal, brave, willing to follow him into hell itself. He hoped he wasn't leading them to their deaths. The forbidden territories were worse than the legends described. The forest swallowed them within hours of crossing the border. Ancient trees twisted toward the sky like grasping fingers, their branches so thick overhead that sunlight became a memory. The air tasted wrong, heavy and sour, like something had died and kept rotting for centuries. But it was the silence that unnerved them most. No birds. No insects. No rustling of small creatures in the underbrush. Just endless, oppressive quiet that made every snapping twig sound like a thunderclap. Dominic led the way, following the mate bond like a compass needle pointing north. It pulled him deeper into the darkness, past rivers that ran black with something that wasn't quite water, past rock formations that looked unsettlingly like frozen screams. On the first night, they lost 12 men. Not to death, at least, not that they could tell. The soldiers simply vanished. One moment they were there, standing guard at the perimeter. The next, their posts were empty. No blood. No signs of struggle. Just, gone. Shadows, one of the younger soldiers whispered, his voice trembling. The shadows took them. Dominic wanted to dismiss it as superstition. But he had seen the darkness move at the corners of his vision. Had felt something watching them from between the trees. They pressed on. By the third night, they had lost nearly a quarter of their forces. The attack came without warning. One moment, the camp was quiet. The next, figures emerged from the darkness like ghosts given form, dozens of them, moving with coordinated precision that spoke of military training, not mindless savagery. They wore black armor marked with a silver crescent. Dominic's men scrambled for their weapons, but they were outmaneuvered before they could form a defensive line. The attackers were everywhere and nowhere, striking from shadows, disappearing before blades could find flesh. Hold your ground. Dominic roared, his own sword flashing as he cut through the chaos. But his blade found only empty air. These weren't rogues. These weren't monsters. These were soldiers. Enough. The voice cut through the night like a blade. The attackers froze, then parted to reveal a woman walking through their ranks with the easy confidence of someone who had never known fear. She was not Elara. But she was terrifying in her own right, tall, muscular, with a face marked by scars that told stories of battles survived. Her eyes swept over Dominic with cold assessment. Alpha King Dominic Blackwood. She said his name like it tasted sour. The Shadow Queen knows you're here. Dominic's heart slammed against his ribs. Take me to her. The woman laughed. It was not a kind sound. She has a message for you. Turn back now, and your men will live. Continue forward, and she'll bury you in these lands alongside every fool who underestimated her. I'm not leaving without seeing her. You're not in a position to make demands. The woman, Kira, he heard one of her soldiers call her, circled him slowly. You rejected her. Humiliated her in front of thousands of wolves. Threw her away like garbage. And now you march into her kingdom and demand to see her. I need to explain. Explain what? That you're sorry? Kira stopped directly in front of him, close enough that he could see every line of contempt on her scarred face. The woman you knew is dead, Alpha King. She died the night she stumbled into these territories, broken and bleeding and alone. What rose from those ashes is something else entirely. She leaned closer. The Shadow Queen doesn't answer to kings. She turned and melted back into the shadows, her soldiers following like smoke on the wind. Within seconds, Dominic and his men were alone. And 20 more of his soldiers were gone. The attacks continued for a week. Elara's forces struck without pattern or warning, sometimes at night, sometimes in broad daylight, sometimes when they were marching, sometimes when they were resting. They never killed. They simply took. One by one, Dominic's army dwindled. But here was what confused him: the prisoners were being treated humanely. Marcus confirmed it after intercepting a message from one of the captured soldiers. They were being held in comfortable cells. Fed well. Given medical attention for any injuries. Some had even been offered the choice to join the Shadow Queen's forces. If she wanted revenge, Marcus said quietly, she'd be killing them. Not caring for them. Dominic stared into the darkness between the trees. The bond was stronger now, pulling at him with increasing urgency. She was close. So close he could almost feel her heartbeat alongside his own. She's not trying to destroy us, he realized. She's proving a point. What point? That she's better than me. Than us. Than everything we represent. He closed his eyes. She's showing mercy to prove she's worthy of the crown I denied her. He went alone. Marcus argued against it. Thorn threatened to physically restrain him. But Dominic was done risking the lives of his men for a mission that had only ever been his to complete. He followed the bond through the twisted forest, past horrors he didn't let himself examine too closely, until the trees finally opened onto something impossible. A fortress carved from the living mountain. Black stone walls rose toward the sky, marked with symbols that glowed faintly silver in the darkness. Creatures patrolled the ramparts, some that looked almost wolf-like, others that defied description. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. And standing at the gates, as if she had been expecting him all along, was Elara. He barely recognized her. The girl in the white gown was gone. In her place stood a queen, armor of midnight black, a crown of twisted thorns, silver eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. Power radiated from her like heat from a forge, so intense that Dominic's wolf immediately dropped into submission. This was not the gentle, hopeful woman he had rejected 3 years ago. This was something else entirely. Elara. Her name fell from his lips like a prayer. She didn't move. Didn't react. Just studied him with those cold silver eyes like he was an insect she was deciding whether to crush. That name belongs to a dead girl. Her voice was steady, controlled. I am the Shadow Queen now. Please. He stepped toward her, his hands raised in supplication. Let me explain. Seraphina used dark magic, a spell to suppress the bond, to make me believe. I know about the spell. He froze. You know? I've known for 2 years. Elara's expression didn't change. Did you think I built a kingdom without building an intelligence network? I know everything that happens in your realm, Dominic. Including when your precious queen visited her witch to strengthen her magic. Then you know it wasn't my choice. You know I was manipulated. I know you didn't fight. The words hit him like a physical blow. The spell suppressed the bond, Elara continued. It didn't erase your will. It didn't control your actions. You stood in that hall, Dominic. You spoke those words with your own mouth. You watched me walk away broken, and you felt nothing, and instead of questioning why you felt nothing, you accepted it. You turned to another woman and forgot I ever existed. My wolf was screaming. And you ignored it. For 3 years, you ignored it. She stepped closer, and he saw the scars on her arms for the first time. Claw marks. Bite wounds. Evidence of battles he couldn't imagine. Do you know what I was doing while you were ignoring your wolf, Dominic? I was fighting for my life. Every single day. I was bleeding in this forest, learning to survive among creatures that wanted to tear me apart, building something from nothing while you sat on your throne and played king with your stolen queen. I'm sorry. I don't want your apologies. Her voice cracked, just slightly. The first sign of emotion she'd shown. I want you to understand what you did. Not what Seraphina did. What you did. She gestured to the fortress behind her, to the creatures and wolves and outcasts watching from the walls. Your kingdom was built on the bones of wolves like me. The rejected. The abandoned. The ones your packs threw away because they weren't strong enough or connected enough or valuable enough. Do you know how many rogues in this territory were created by your precious realm? How many wolves were cast out for minor offenses, left to die in these cursed lands? Dominic said nothing. There was nothing to say. I'm going to tear it all down, Elara said quietly. Everything you built. Everything your father built. The whole rotten system that decides some wolves are worth saving and others are garbage to be discarded. I'm going to burn it to the ground and build something better. For the first time, Dominic truly looked at what surrounded him. Thousands of figures emerging from the shadows. Wolves in black armor. Creatures of legend and nightmare. An army built from the broken and the forgotten. All of them loyal to her. He was completely at her mercy. Kill me if you must, he said softly. I won't fight you. But know that I'll spend every moment of this life and the next trying to make this right. The bond isn't broken, Elara. I feel you. And I know, somewhere beneath all this pain, you feel me too. Something flickered across her face. Just for an instant. Pain. Longing. The ghost of a girl who had once stood at the end of an aisle, so full of hope. Then it was gone. Lock him in the tower, she commanded. The Alpha King is now my prisoner. Guards materialized from the shadows, gripping his arms. As they dragged him toward the fortress, Dominic kept his eyes on Elara. She watched him go with an expression he couldn't read. And somewhere in his chest, the mate bond pulsed with something that felt almost like hope. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. The tower room was not a dungeon. That was the first thing Dominic noticed when the guards deposited him in the circular chamber at the top of the fortress's eastern spire. There were no chains. No iron bars. No instruments of torture waiting to extract payment for his sins. Instead, there was a bed with clean linens. A table with a pitcher of water and a basin for washing. A fireplace that crackled with warmth against the mountain chill. And a window. The window faced west, overlooking the heart of the Shadow Kingdom, a realm that should not exist, that no wolf from his world had ever seen. Dominic spent his first hours as a prisoner simply standing there, watching, trying to reconcile what he saw with everything he thought he knew. It was beautiful. The fortress sat at the center of a vast valley, surrounded by villages and farmland and forests that teemed with life. Wolves moved through the streets below, not skulking rogues or feral outcasts, but families. Communities. Children playing in the squares while their parents worked and laughed and lived. And among them moved creatures he had only read about in ancient texts. Shadow wraiths drifting between buildings. Fire elementals tending forges. Beings of smoke and starlight that defied classification. All of them coexisting with wolves in a harmony that seemed impossible. How? His wolf whispered. How did she build this? The answer came on the second day, when he spotted Elara walking through the main square. She moved without guards. That was what struck him first. In his kingdom, he never walked anywhere without a security detail. But Elara strolled through the crowded market like any other citizen, stopping to examine goods, chatting with vendors, accepting small gifts of food and flowers with genuine smiles. Children ran to her without fear. A small girl, couldn't have been more than 5, tugged at Elara's cloak, and instead of being shooed away by protective guards, she was swept up into the queen's arms. Elara laughed at something the child said, that cold mask he'd seen at the gates completely absent. She was beloved. Not feared, not obeyed, not tolerated. Beloved. In a way that Dominic, with all his power and all his armies, had never achieved. He watched a wounded soldier approach her, limping on a makeshift crutch. Instead of formal salutes and rigid protocol, Elara clasped the soldier's hand like an old friend. She examined the injury herself, spoke to someone who looked like a healer, then embraced the soldier before moving on. His wolf let out a sound that was half howl, half sob. This is what she became without us. This is who she was always meant to be. And he had thrown it all away. Days passed. Dominic ate the food they brought him, simple but well prepared. He slept in the comfortable bed. He paced the room and stared out the window and drowned in the crushing weight of his own regret. No one came to interrogate him. No one came to punish him. He was simply left. Alone with his thoughts and his guilt and the mate bond that pulsed constantly in his chest, reminding him of everything he'd lost. He could feel her now. Not just the pull of the bond, but her emotions bleeding through the connection that Seraphina's magic had suppressed for so long. Elara was angry. Conflicted. In pain. And beneath all of that, buried so deep she probably didn't even acknowledge it herself, she still loved him. The knowledge was a knife in his heart. She loved him, and he had destroyed her. She loved him, and she could never trust him again. She loved him, and that love was now a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. He deserved this prison. Deserved far worse. Elara stood on the balcony of her private chambers, gripping the stone railing hard enough to turn her knuckles white. She could feel him. 3 years of blessed numbness, and now the bond was screaming inside her like a living thing. Every emotion Dominic felt crashed through her in waves, his guilt, his desperation, his remorse, his love. Moon goddess help her, his love. It poured through the connection like poison and honey combined, making her want to scream and weep and run to him all at once. She did none of those things. She stood on her balcony and watched the sun set over her kingdom and tried to remember how to breathe. You need to kill him or release him. Kira's voice came from the doorway. Elara didn't turn around. I'm aware of my options. Then pick one. Kira crossed the room to stand beside her queen. Keeping him here is destroying you. I've watched you build this kingdom from nothing, Elara. I've watched you face monsters and armies and impossible odds without flinching. But these past few days? You're barely holding yourself together. I'm fine. You're not fine. You haven't slept. You've barely eaten. Every time someone mentions the prisoner, you flinch like you've been struck. Kira's voice softened. The bond is eating you alive. You have to do something. Elara closed her eyes. I know. Then do it. Execute him for his crimes against you. Or release him and send him back to his kingdom. But this limbo is killing you, and I won't stand by and watch it happen. Silence stretched between them. I can't kill him, Elara finally whispered. And I can't let him go. I don't know what that makes me, Kira. Weak, probably. Foolish, certainly. But I can't. She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't admit out loud that despite everything, the rejection, the humiliation, the 3 years of agony, some part of her still wanted him. Still craved him. Still mourned the future they should have had together. The mate bond was a curse disguised as a blessing. Then talk to him, Kira said quietly. If you can't decide his fate, at least figure out why. She went to him at midnight. The guards at the tower door stepped aside without question. Elara climbed the spiral staircase alone, her heart pounding harder with each step. The bond knew she was coming, she could feel Dominic's sudden alertness, his desperate hope. She paused outside his door. I can still turn back. I don't have to do this. But she did. 3 years of unanswered questions. 3 years of wondering why. She needed to understand, even if understanding changed nothing. She pushed open the door. Dominic stood at the window, his back to her. He didn't turn around when she entered, but she saw his shoulders tense. "You felt me coming," she said. "I feel you always now." His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in days. Every moment. Every breath. He turned then, and Elara was struck by how different he looked. Thinner, yes, the meals had been adequate but not generous. But it was more than physical. The arrogant king who had rejected her in that grand hall was gone. In his place stood a man who looked like he'd been hollowed out from the inside. Good, she thought viciously. But the satisfaction she expected didn't come. She stepped into the room, letting the door close behind her. Neither of them spoke. They just stood there, staring at each other across the space of a few feet that felt like an ocean. Finally, Dominic broke the silence. "I dream about that night. Every time I close my eyes." He didn't move toward her, didn't reach for her. Just stood there, exposed. "I see you walking down that aisle. I see the hope in your eyes. And then I watch myself destroy it, and I can't stop it. I can't change the words coming out of my own mouth. The spell. The spell suppressed the bond. It didn't possess me." He echoed her words from the gates. "You were right. I didn't fight. I felt nothing when I should have felt everything, and I accepted it. I didn't question why my wolf was howling. I didn't wonder why this woman I was supposed to love felt like a stranger. I just let it happen." Elara said nothing. "For 3 years, I had nightmares about silver eyes," he continued. "I woke up with a name on my lips that I couldn't remember. My wolf mourned something I couldn't identify. And I ignored all of it because it was easier than questioning the perfect life Seraphina had constructed for me." "You're making excuses." "I'm telling you the truth." He finally met her eyes. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to take me back or accept the bond or pretend the last 3 years didn't happen. I know I can't undo what I did." "Then what are you asking for?" "A chance." His voice cracked. "A chance to prove that the man who rejected you is not who I truly am. A chance to spend the rest of my life earning the trust one destroyed. Even if you never forgive me. Even if you reject the bond completely. I will fight for your happiness, Elara. That's the only purpose I have left." Her walls cracked. She felt it happen, the carefully constructed armor she'd built over 3 years, developing fissures she couldn't control. His emotions poured through the bond, and they were real. No manipulation. No performance. Just raw, devastating sincerity. "How can I trust you?" The words came out broken. "How can I trust anyone after what your world did to me?" "You can't." He didn't flinch from the truth. Trust isn't given. It's built. Slowly. Painfully. Through actions, not words. "I know I have no right to ask for time I don't deserve. But I will spend however long it takes." The alarm shattered the moment like glass. Elara's hand went to her sword instinctively. The alarm bells were deafening, a pattern she recognized immediately: external threat, large scale, imminent. Her chamber door burst open. Kira stood in the doorway, her face pale. "My queen. We have a problem." "Report." "Seraphina has escaped the Blackwood dungeons." Kira's eyes flicked to Dominic. "But she didn't escape alone. She's allied with the Vampire Dominion." The words hit like a physical blow. The Vampire Dominion. Ancient enemies of all werewolves. Creatures who had been driven back beyond the mountains generations ago after a war that had nearly exterminated both species. "That's impossible," Dominic breathed. "The treaties are apparently meaningless to a woman who's already committed treason." Kira turned back to Elara. "There's more. In exchange for their army, she promised them the location of the Shadow Kingdom. And the heads of both the Alpha King and the Shadow Queen." Elara felt the blood drain from her face. "How far?" "A day's march. Maybe less. They're moving fast." Kira hesitated. My queen, they outnumber us. And they have weapons designed specifically to slaughter werewolves. The room seemed to tilt. Everything Elara had built, every refugee she'd saved, every outcast she'd given purpose, every child who played safely in her streets, all of it hung in the balance. She looked at Dominic. He looked back at her. And in that moment, the past 3 years became irrelevant. Release him. Kira blinked. My queen? You heard me. Elara strode to a cabinet in the corner and pulled out a sword, black steel forged in shadow fire, one of the finest weapons in her armory. She turned and held it out to Dominic. If you betray me again, she said quietly, I will kill you myself. He took the sword. Their fingers brushed, and the bonds sang. I would let you, he replied. They reached the fortress walls as dawn broke over the mountains. And there, spreading across the valley like a tide of death, was the vampire army. Thousands of them. Pale faces and red eyes and weapons that glinted with silver, poison to werewolves. They moved in perfect formation, a war machine designed for a single purpose, annihilation. At their head, mounted on a horse as black as midnight, rode Seraphina. She had changed. The beautiful socialite was gone, replaced by something twisted. Dark magic crackled around her like lightning. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural purple light. And her smile, that sweet, venomous smile, had become something truly mad. You should have killed me when you had the chance, my king. Her voice carried across the battlefield, amplified by magic. Now I will take everything from both of you. Elara felt Dominic go rigid beside her. Behind them, her army assembled. Wolves in black armor. Shadow creatures. Rogues and outcasts and monsters united under a single banner. They were outnumbered, outgunned. But they were not beaten. The mate bond hummed between Elara and Dominic, damaged, scarred, but alive. And in that moment, standing on the wall with death approaching, it felt stronger than it ever had. Together? Dominic asked quietly. Elara looked at the army before her. At the woman who had stolen everything from both of them. At the impossible odds they faced. She did not look at him. But she nodded. Together. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 5. The first vampire died on Elara's blade before the sun fully crested the mountains. She moved through the chaos like a shadow given form, her black armor slick with blood that wasn't her own. Around her, the battle raged, wolves clashing with vampires, shadow creatures tearing through enemy lines, the screams of the dying filling the air like a terrible symphony. This was war. Real war. Not the political maneuvering she'd witnessed in Dominic's court, but the raw, brutal reality of survival. And she was good at it. 3 years in the Forbidden Territories had forged her into something new. Every monster she'd faced, every impossible odds she'd overcome, every night she'd spent wondering if she'd live to see morning, it had all been preparation for this moment. She cut down another vampire and kept moving. Dominic fought like a man possessed. His wolf was fully unleashed, gold eyes blazing, claws and fangs extended as he tore through the vampire ranks. He had one target, one purpose, Seraphina. The woman who had stolen his mate, his bond, his soul. The woman who was now trying to destroy everything that remained. But she was protected. The vampire lord materialized from the chaos like a nightmare given flesh. Ancient. Powerful. His pale face was a mask of cruel amusement as he blocked Dominic's path. The Alpha King, the creature purred. I've waited centuries to taste royal blood. Dominic didn't waste breath on words. He attacked. The vampire was fast, faster than anything Dominic had ever faced. Their blades clashed in a blur of steel and shadow, each strike powerful enough to shatter bone. The creature matched him blow for blow, that terrible smile never wavering. She promised us your head, the vampire lord said, dancing away from Dominic's claws. But she didn't mention how entertaining the taking would be. Dominic pressed harder, drawing on every ounce of strength his wolf possessed. The mate bond pulsed in his chest, and he could feel Elara somewhere in the chaos, alive, fighting, magnificent. He would not let her down. Not again. Elara's shadow creatures were devastating. They moved through the vampire army like smoke through fingers, impossible to pin down, impossible to stop. Wraiths pulled soldiers into darkness. Fire elementals turned the enemy's flanks into infernos. The outcasts and rogues she'd trained fought with the desperate ferocity of those who had nothing left to lose. But Seraphina had prepared well. Dark magic crackled across the battlefield, creating barriers that blocked their strongest attacks. Every time Elara's forces gained ground, those purple shields pushed them back. The witch had grown more powerful, or more desperate. Perhaps both. Elara cut down another vampire and scanned the chaos for Dominic. She found him locked in combat with something ancient and terrible. The vampire lord moved with supernatural speed, and even Dominic's considerable strength was barely holding the line. He's going to die. The thought sent ice through her veins. She hated him. She did. 3 years of pain and betrayal and rage, she hated him. But watching him fall was not something she could bear. She started fighting toward him. Seraphina found her first. One moment, Elara was cutting through enemy soldiers. The next, purple lightning slammed into her chest, sending her crashing to the ground. Her sword flew from her grip. Her lungs refused to draw breath. Dark magic pinned her to the blood-soaked earth like a butterfly on a board. Seraphina emerged from the chaos, walking calmly through the battle as if the carnage around her was nothing more than background noise. She held a blade in her hand, silver, dripping with something that made Elara's wolf howl in recognition. Wolfsbane. Finally. Seraphina stood over her, that beautiful face twisted with 3 years of jealousy and rage. Do you know how long I've waited for this moment? How many nights I lay awake, knowing that even with all my magic, he still dreamed of you. Elara struggled against the invisible bonds. They didn't budge. He was supposed to be mine. Seraphina's voice cracked. I did everything right. I was beautiful. Powerful. Connected. I gave him alliances that made his kingdom untouchable. And still, his wolf howled for you every night. A nobody from a nothing pack. That's because the bond isn't about power. Elara forced the words out through gritted teeth. It's about souls. And yours is rotten. Seraphina's face contorted with fury. She raised the poisoned blade. Let's see how much he wants you when you're dead. Dominic felt the moment Elara's fear spiked through the bond. He turned from the vampire lord, a mistake that should have cost him his life. But something deeper than survival instinct drove him now. Something that had been suppressed for 3 years and would not be denied a moment longer. His mate was in danger. Everything else ceased to matter. He moved faster than he'd ever moved before, his wolf and human halves merging into something primal and unstoppable. The vampire lord's blade caught his shoulder, carving a deep wound that he barely felt. He kept running. He saw Seraphina standing over Elara, the poisoned blade raised to strike. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He simply moved. He crashed into Seraphina with the force of a hurricane, sending her sprawling across the bloody ground. Behind him, the vampire lord lay dead. When had he killed it? He couldn't remember. It didn't matter. All that mattered was Elara. The dark magic holding her shattered when Seraphina lost her concentration. Elara gasped, drawing her first full breath in what felt like hours. Dominic. Stay down. His voice was barely human, his wolf so close to the surface that his words came out as a growl. She's mine. Seraphina scrambled to her feet, dark magic crackling around her hands. You can't kill me. Her voice was high, desperate. Without my magic, the barriers fall. The vampires will overwhelm you. Then they'll overwhelm us. Dominic advanced on her, blood dripping from his wounded shoulder. But you won't live to see it. I did this for us. She backed away, her composure finally cracking. I loved you. Everything I did was for us. You loved power. You loved the crown. You never loved me. He raised his clawed hand. And I never loved you. I couldn't. Because my heart was never yours to take. Seraphina's face twisted. And then, faster than he could react, she pulled something from beneath her cloak. A dagger. Black as midnight, covered in symbols that seemed to writhe and pulse with malevolent energy. Do you know what this is? Her smile was unhinged. A curse blade. Ancient magic. One strike, and the mate bond dies forever. No more golden thread connecting you to your precious Elara. No more second chances. Just, nothing. She threw it. Not at him. At Elara. Time slowed. Dominic saw the blade spinning through the air, saw Elara struggling to rise, saw the trajectory that would end everything. He didn't think. He threw himself into the blade's path. The cursed dagger sank into his chest, inches from his heart. Elara screamed. She was on her feet without knowing how she got there, running toward Dominic as he crumpled to the ground. The bond was shrieking, a sound inside her soul that threatened to tear her apart. No. No, no, no. She fell to her knees beside him. The dagger pulsed with dark light, and she could feel the curse spreading through the bond like poison. It was trying to sever them. Trying to destroy the connection that had survived rejection and dark magic and 3 years of separation. Dominic. Stay with me. Stay with me. His eyes fluttered open. Gold fading to brown. Had to protect you. You idiot. Tears streamed down her face. You absolute idiot. The curse pulled harder. She felt the bond stretching, fraying, preparing to snap. No. Something inside her refused. 3 years of suppressed love. 3 years of pain and longing and rage that was really just heartbreak wearing armor. 3 years of pretending she didn't still feel him in her soul every single day. She was done pretending. Elara grabbed the mate bond with everything she had, her shadow magic, her wolf, her soul, and she pulled. The curse fought back. For a terrible moment, it was stronger. Dark magic against sacred bond, ancient evil against the blessing of the moon goddess herself. But the curse had one fatal flaw. It was designed to sever bonds that were weak. Fragile. Easily broken. This bond had survived 3 years of magical suppression. It had survived rejection and humiliation and the kind of pain that should have destroyed it entirely. It had burned in the darkness of the forbidden territories and howled in the nightmares of a cursed king. This bond was not weak. Golden light exploded from Elara's chest, from Dominic's chest, from the space between them where the dagger still pulsed with dying malevolence. The curse shattered. The blade crumbled to dust. And the mate bond, fully restored for the first time in 3 years, blazed between them like a supernova. Seraphina stumbled backward, her face white with terror. That's impossible. The curse, that magic is ancient. Elara rose. Her eyes were pure silver now, blazing with power. The bond and the shadow magic merged into something new, something neither fully wolf nor fully darkness but both at once. You can't curse what the moon goddess herself has blessed. She advanced on Seraphina. The witch tried to run, but shadows caught her ankles, her wrists, her throat. They held her suspended above the blood-soaked ground as Elara approached. You took 3 years from me. Elara's voice was quiet. Controlled. Terrifying. You took my mate. My dignity. My future. You threw me into the darkness and expected me to die. Please, Seraphina whimpered. But I didn't die. Elara leaned close. I became something you will never understand. Something your dark magic could never create. I became a queen. She stepped back. I'm not going to kill you, Seraphina. I'm going to let you live. In the dungeons of the Shadow Kingdom. Surrounded by the outcasts and rogues you thought were beneath you. Her smile was cold. Let them be your judges. Seraphina screamed as the shadows dragged her away. The battle turned after that. Without Seraphina's magic maintaining the barriers, without their leader to command them, the vampire army faltered. Elara's forces pressed the advantage while Dominic's wolves, those who had been captured and held prisoner, now freed and fighting alongside the Shadow Queen's soldiers, joined the assault. By sunset, it was over. The vampires retreated into the mountains, broken and leaderless. The battlefield fell silent except for the groans of the wounded and the quiet weeping of the survivors. Elara barely noticed. She knelt in the bloody mud beside Dominic, cradling his head in her lap. The curse was broken, but the dagger had done physical damage. His chest was a ruin of torn flesh and shattered ribs. You almost died for me, she whispered. His eyes opened. Tired. Pained. But warm in a way she hadn't seen in 3 years. I would die 1,000 times. His hand found hers. I failed you once. I will never fail you again. The road to healing was long. Dominic's wounds took weeks to mend. During that time, he did not demand anything from Elara. He did not push for forgiveness or a restored mating. He simply stayed. He helped rebuild what the battle had damaged. He learned the names of every citizen in the Shadow Kingdom, the wolves, the creatures, the outcasts who had become Elara's family. He worked alongside them, ate with them, listened to their stories. He earned their trust the way she had. Through action, not titles. Slowly, Elara's walls crumbled. She watched him play with the children who had once run from any stranger. She watched him sit with wounded soldiers, not as a king offering hollow comfort, but as a man who genuinely wanted to understand their pain. She watched him become someone she almost recognized. The man he could have been. Should have been. Would have been, if dark magic hadn't twisted everything. One night, under a full moon, she found him standing at the edge of the fortress. He was looking out at the kingdom they had begun to merge, the Blackwood realm and the Shadow Kingdom, united for the first time in history. Former enemies working side by side. Former outcasts given places of honor. She stood beside him. The bond hummed peacefully between them, no longer screaming or fighting, just present. I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you, she said honestly. Some scars don't heal. I know. He didn't look away from the view. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm only asking for the chance to stand beside you. As your partner. Your equal. Your mate, if you'll have me. Silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, she took his hand. We start over, she said. No thrones. No politics. Just us. And if you ever betray me again, you'll destroy me. He finally looked at her, and his eyes were soft. And I'll let you. She almost smiled. Good answer. Months later, a new ceremony took place. Not in a grand hall filled with political allies, but in a moonlit clearing in the Forbidden Territories. Wolves and shadow creatures stood together, witnesses to something sacred. Dominic marked her first. His teeth pierced the curve of her neck, and the bond flared like a star being born. Then she marked him. Her wolf surged forward, claiming what had always been hers, and the bond sealed with a force that shook the very earth. When they finally pulled apart, the clearing was silent with awe. The Alpha King and the Shadow Queen. Two broken people who had found their way back to each other. Not through power or politics, but through pain, growth, and the stubborn refusal of a bond that would not die. Elara looked at Dominic, her silver eyes finally warm. You tore apart kingdoms to find me. He smiled, the first real smile in 3 years. I would tear apart the universe, Elara. For you, I would burn it all down and rebuild it from the ashes. She kissed him under the moon. And for the first time in 3 years, she finally felt whole. I know you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, kindly hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments section below and share this video to family and friends. The end.